For Swagelok tube fitting installations in tight, compact spaces, the Swagelok gaugeable pre-swaging tool can be a convenient accessory to help you make reliable connections. Before beginning the tube fitting installation process, be sure you have the right tools available. You will need the gaugeable pre-swaging tool in the appropriate fractional or metric size. Fractional tools will have a blue band, while metric will have a yellow band. Tubing that meets minimum wall thickness recommendations. A Swagelok tube fitting with a nut and both front and back ferrule. Appropriate wrenches. And a standard Swagelok gap gauge. Now you are ready to use the tool. First, place the pre-swaging tool into a vise and unscrew the nut from the tool. Then, install the fitting nut and ferrules onto the pre-swaging tool, being careful to keep the ferrules oriented correctly. Next, insert the tube into the pre-swaging tool until tubing bottoms out on the shoulder inside the tool. Rotate the nut until finger tight. Then, while holding the pre-swaging tool steady, tighten the nut with a wrench until it stops against the collar. Finally, loosen the nut and remove the tube with the pre-swaged ferrules from the pre-swaging tool. If the tube sticks, gently rock it back and forth. Do not turn the tube. Remove the pre-swaging tool from the vise. Now you are ready to install the tube fitting. First, install the tube with the pre-swaged ferrules into the fitting until the front ferrule seats against the fitting body. Then rotate the nut finger tight. Next, mark the nut on the 6 o'clock position. Then, while holding the fitting body steady in a vise, tighten the nut 1/2 turn to the 12 o'clock position. Note, if assembling fittings for high-pressure applications or high safety factor systems, severe service, tighten 1 hex flat further than 1/2 turn. Another option to keep the fitting body steady, if you do not have access to a vise, is to use a second open-ended wrench on the fitting body. Finally, use your Swagelok gap inspection gauge to check that your fitting has been sufficiently tightened. Position the Swagelok gap inspection gauge next to the gap between the nut and body. If the gauge will not enter the gap, the fitting is sufficiently tightened. If the gauge will enter the gap, additional tightening is required. Now that you've learned how to use a Swagelok pre-swaging tool, you'll be better equipped to make safe and reliable tube fitting connections. If you're interested in learning more about best practices for tube fitting installation, Swagelok offers a wide variety of fluid and sampling system training opportunities. For more information about Swagelok training, visit swagelok.com and get in touch with our training specialists.